Just a little bit of background on the company. Troubadour Resources listed last June, so it's a relatively new listing on the Venture Exchange. And as Gwen touched on, we are a copper-focused company looking at a copper porphyry in BC, but we do have some exciting news to share with you today that will be released tomorrow before market open, and it's the acquisition of a high-grade gold asset in BC. So let's go through a forward-looking statement. I think if you're in the room, you're okay with risk, so your risk tolerance is a little bit higher. All right, just a quick snapshot of the company, led by a team of experienced individuals. Like I said, we come from a strong technical background as well as the capital market side. We are now a diversified explorer. We are entering the high-grade gold space with this acquisition that I'll touch on here briefly in a few minutes. That's quite exciting, as I mentioned. And we are also looking at a copper porphyry, both in British Columbia, both road accessible. Access is really good. We can work year-round on both of these assets we have. And there's only 21 million shares out, which is another key asset and attraction to this company. It's quite tightly held. Management and key individuals own about 40%. And so just to quickly go over the management team, Gary Schellenberg is the CEO, myself, president, Mike Sieb is the director, as well as Paul, and Alistair Brownlow is the CFO. Quick corporate structure, like as I mentioned, 21 million shares out, 37 million fully diluted, have about $500,000 in the bank, and so that's enough to get us through the next few months here and do our due diligence on this asset acquisition we're looking at. So this asset acquisition we're looking at is the Surespan Gold Project, and it encompasses the historic Zabalas Gold Camp. And the key about this asset acquisition is the first time the Zabalas Gold Camp has ever been consolidated. The land package has always been fragmented and had disjointed ownership. So past explorers only had small fragments of this. And what the private group who are we have the LOI signed for this deal, what they've done is they've consolidated the land package. And over the last few years, they've done a considerable amount of work on this project. They put about 70 drill holes into it. And actually, in their first drill hole ever on the property, they discovered a new vein. And a highlight of one of the intercepts from that new vein is the one on the first bullet point here, almost 1,400 grams per ton, over 30 centimeters. Now, that intercept is only 85 meters downhole, and this hole was a 45-degree hole. So true depth below surface isn't known. We have to look at the data, but it's a very shallow discovery. A couple other highlights of the deal. We have a 90-day exclusive due diligence period. Like you say, we can scrub it down the data, take a look at this, make sure it makes sense. All share acquisition, so essentially the Surespan Group, which is a large construction company, will become a key shareholder of the company and essentially a partner in developing this project. And the acquisition is for 100% ownership of this historic land package. And within the property boundaries, there's no fewer than 6 past producing mines. And the Zabalas Gold Camp has quite a lot of history behind it. It was discovered and started producing in essentially the mid-30s. And roughly 90% of the gold produced in this camp was produced in only 6 years. And it was from 1935 to 1942. And the reason why production stopped in 42 is because all the miners actually went to go fight in World War II. And when they returned in 1945, the price of gold was $35, which wasn't economical to start back up. So there are some historical resources on this property, which, again, they're historical, but they're not that historical because there is quite a lot of data available on these. And one of note is the privateer. It's 36,000 ounces of measured and 157 ounces of indicated. And it's at a quite high grade. I believe those grades are in the neighborhood of 10 grams per ton on the tonnage factor. So it's a very mineable rock. And the gold veins in the area as well. Gold veins can historically be quite finicky, and you'll know they're there, and then you'll lose them because they'll shear or they'll fault off. The veins in the area have quite a lot of consistency to them, and they do extend for quite a considerable distance. So as I mentioned, the new discovery Surespan made on this property in 2017 is the 88 vein. And they hit it on their first ever drill hole, which is the first modern day drill hole on this property in recent memory. And like you say, it's named the 88 vein because of its shallow nature. That discovery was made 88 meters downhole. And a couple other drill highlights from that 2017 campaign are listed here. You say the 1,386 grams per ton over 30 centimeters. There's another intercept of 1,218 grams per ton over 20 centimeters, and 436 grams per ton over half a meter. Now, we do not have the data. We haven't looked at what the drill hole composites are on these, so it's likely that it could be a wider interval of gold here. Those are just the true high-grade vein intersections. And this property, we feel now that it's consolidated, we can have a more regional look at the whole camp, because if Schellenberg discovered one new vein in their first drill hole in this property, there is significant potential to tie together all these past producers due to the uniformity of the veins in the area. They all trend northeast. There's very high potential for further discoveries on this property. The near-term focus is, of course, to complete our due diligence and make sure this acquisition makes sense in our books. And we feel we're to a point now, we wouldn't have signed an LOI if we didn't like this asset. So we are very keen on taking a close look at the data and completing an assessment of those historic resources, especially to see how much work it would take to make those compliant. So we feel there is a lot of data available, and some confirmatory drilling and some hard work, we can prove up some of those ounces and make them compliant. And post-acquisition, if we do follow through with after the due diligence period, near-term focus for this year would be further drilling, exploration drilling, as well as resource expansion, in addition to a detailed geological map of the property, a structural analysis, as these veins are structurally controlled and there is folding in the area. So a detailed geological structural map will definitely aid in the exploration of this asset. And our year two plan we'd permit a bulk sample for the 88 vein, just due to its nature of it being so shallow, and we'd get quite a good chunk of data out of that bulk sample, as well as some gold. And moving on, just to touch briefly on our other asset, which is the Amarillo copper asset. It's located in southern BC, just south of the past producing Brenda mine. And what attracted us to this property originally was a historic trench on the property that graded 0.87% copper over 125 meters. As I mentioned, it's with the Amarillo, it is road accessible, so it has great access, able to be worked year-round, which I think is key these days. As the seasonality effect on some of these projects can be a detriment. And we did complete a small 4-hole drill program on this property before Christmas. The initial results definitely are encouraging geologically, from a geological standpoint, as porphyries are a very complex animal, for lack of a better word. I would be lying if I didn't say I thought we were going to hit on our first drill hole, but it is a complex system geologically, and the data we do have from the 4 holes, there's anomalous copper values, and they are helping us vector in on the heart of where we believe the best mineralization is. And we do feel we're right on the edge of it, so we know which direction we need to move. And permitting is underway to move a few drill pads to better drill test and vector in on where we feel the best location is to drill. One of the targets we would like to drill in the follow-up drill program is what we call the cap anomaly. It's a highly resistive cap over top of a very chargeable body, which is somewhat of a classic textbook porphyry model for the geologists in the room. Disclaimer, I'm not a geologist, so the technical team has guided me on this, and we do feel that's a good opportunity for discovery, and does warrant a few drill holes into this target here. Just to quickly touch on just the two assets here, the Schellenberg Gold Project, as I mentioned, very high grade, good infrastructure, past producing historic gold camp, and the key is this camp has never been consolidated before, and the composition of this land package and reason why it had such fragmented ownership is they're crown grants instead of mineral tenures. So the BC government issued crown grants in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and that practice has since stopped. And a lot of owners of these, they end up being tied up in families, and they essentially get lost. And then the Amarillo Copper Project, we are continuing on drilling that. We have definitely a follow-up drill program planned for the coming months here, and to follow up on the results from the initial drill program. And again, it's all about structure these days. A very attractive share structure. Management key personnel own quite a significant portion of this company, and I think a lot of the shareholders have a long-term focus as well, as they are in it like you say, everybody likes that term 10-bagger. So I am now out of time, so I'll pass this back to Gwen, and we'll be at the booth as well, so if you have any questions, pop by and we'll be happy to answer.